Good morning, everyone, and thank you for taking your time out for today's webinar. This is your host, Amit Kumar. I am Director of Marketing for Microexcel. Today's webinar is titled, Finally, the Ability of Creating Public Anonymous Sites is Back in Office 365. And to present today's webinar, I am joined by my colleague, Seth Bates, who is Delivery Director for our Microsoft Center of Excellence. Seth brings over 2 decades of experience in engineering SharePoint-based business solution on both development and delivery sides. Apart from broad range of expertise in all phases of the software engineering lifecycle, Seth has co-authored multiple SharePoint publications, including SharePoint 2010 Users Guide, which was titled Learning Microsoft's Business Collaboration Platform. His publications have been covered in industry-leading magazines, including Dr. Dobbs Journal. Before passing the mic to Seth, here are a few ground rules which will help us in delivering this webinar smoothly. So all attendees will be in listen-only mode. Questions can be typed in the questions panel on your GoToWebinar console, and these will be brought up towards the end of the webinar. Other request that we have is do participate in the poll questions that will pop up on your screens as we go into the presentation. These will help us give right direction to the conversation. Lastly, today's webinar is being recorded to make sure that we have a recorded copy available for sharing with all the attendees. So with that, I'll invite Seth to take over the floor.
Thank you, Amit. Thanks for the introduction, and I'll just start moving forward with the presentation. Quick agenda first. I'll have a little bit more of an introduction into who I am and what Microexcel is. It'll be brief. We will then dive into what you're really here for, which is PowerApps Portals, right? What are PowerApps Portals? How to create them, ways to edit and diving into the design editor of PowerApps Portals, and then getting into the administration behind the scenes, all the fun things you can configure and improve upon. And then we will also touch on the licensing, because of course there's a licensing component to the technology, and we'll dive into that to kind of open up the financial side of things as well, potential financial impact. And then we will have time for Q&A, and as like Amit said, please don't hesitate to submit those questions while we're going, and then at the end we will read those out, and I'll do my best to answer them. So, like Amit said, my name is Seth Bates, and this is a picture of part of the Microsoft team at Ignite just a couple weeks back. This is actually a picture where we are awarding the raffle prize to the raffle winner towards the end of Ignite. And the funny thing is that this is not me. This is Justin Sipek. He's our practice director, and he was originally scheduled to give this webinar. But unfortunately, or fortunately, he had to deal with an urgent conflict, and you've been upgraded to me. So that's me in the middle. Like Amit said, I've got 20 years of experience all on Microsoft technology stack, and I am the director of delivery at the Microsoft practice and in Microexcel, which really means I oversee all of our projects, all of our implementation and migration and software development projects in the Microsoft practice. So what does Microsoft do real quickly? Microexcel do real quickly? Well, Microsoft has this marketing terminology called digital transformation for getting you up to Microsoft 365. And that's what we're focused on. And these are our 4 pillars of that digital transformation journey. So this is what we focus on. You can see it's plan, adopt, manage, and embrace. And each of those pillars has offerings and implementations that we do to help you along that digital transformation journey over to Microsoft 365. But enough about me and enough about Microexcel. Let's get to, before we get to what you're really here for, which is PowerApps Portals, I want to ask you a quick poll question so that we can better understand the audience and I can tailor what I'm about to do to your responses. So, how are you currently using PowerApps in your organization? And Amit, if you can put that poll up, thank you.
Yeah, it is already, and we'll expect all the attendees to respond to the question. Okay, so we have got about 85% responses, and let me see how those are looking like. So 44% of the responses say they are evaluating it. 30% use it for forms only. 11% are not at all using PowerApps, and 11% says that we are already using PowerApps Portal. So that's the quick stats.
Okay, that's actually I think a very good mix and a good response to see that most people are either already using it or evaluating it in some manner, right? So hopefully this helps you for those evaluating it, helps you determine exactly how you can use it, and good luck moving forward with that. So let's now get into some of the meat of this and some of that content that you're here for, right? So what are PowerApps Portals? All right. So PowerApps Portals are actually not a new technology, right? They were originally called Dynamics 365 Portals, which was an add-on to model-driven apps in Dynamics 365, right? Take that and add a question I've got for you, which is whatever happened to SharePoint Online public websites? And maybe you remember those. There's a little screenshot of the home page of the default SharePoint Online public website. And Microsoft has taken Dynamics 365 Portals and the concept of SharePoint Online public websites and revitalized them within the Power Platform. So what's the Power Platform? That is, and at Ignite is when they announced Power Automate is the new term for Flow, and add that to Power Apps, and you get the Power Platform, right? So now those portals and the quote unquote public websites are now part of this Power Platform. So what are those portals? It's a low code external facing website, right? So it's something that's targeted towards power users rather than coders, rather than developers. And it's a way for them to be able to quickly stand up external facing websites out on the internet. Not only that, but it automatically comes with a responsive UI so that those external facing websites look good not only on standard computers, but also tablets and phones and other mobile devices. Lastly, these portals allow users to create and consume information from the common data service, right? So all of this ties into the Power Platform, where the common data service exists, and that information can be exposed and created, and we'll see exactly how in a few slides. Now, we've talked about these being externally facing, and that often includes anonymous access, which PowerApps Portals does include, right? However, there's also the need for identity models, authentication and authorization. And PowerApps Portals allows you to let users authenticate via Azure AD, Microsoft accounts, LinkedIn account, Google. So there are numerous identity models for you to identify who is actually leveraging the site. And we'll see why that's important. Before we dig into an actual portal, though, we need to take a step back and talk about environments, right? So if you haven't used PowerApps, or you're just evaluating now, you might not be familiar with environments, and it's really a building block of the Power Platform. So what is an environment? It's a container of apps, flows, and data, right? And you can create multiple environments within your tenant, right? So why would you want to do that? Firstly, to segregate roles and security requirements. You may also want to use it to mimic your software development processes, right? Your DevOps processes. So having a dev, a test, a prod environment. You can also, each one is based in a geographic location. And for performance reasons, you may want, like this example shows, you may want environments in Australia versus the US versus Canada for performance reasons, right? Now, each common data service database, and this is going to be crucial to the portals, each common data service database is tied to a specific environment, right? And no data or apps or flows for that matter can cross over to another environment. So this is a totally contained silo, each of these environments. Again, that's important to the portals. We're going to see in a second that each thing is siloed, and we'll see how that's configured. Okay. So now, how do we create a PowerApps portal? So I've got a slide here, and we'll see this towards the end, but I'm really going to bring up the actual pages. So where do we start? Well, we start in PowerApps, and to get to PowerApps, you go to make.powerapps.com. Okay, so in make.powerapps.com, we've got this interface here, and up in the top right is your environment selection, right? So I'm working in one of these environments, and you can see I've got 4 environments here that I have access to. Now, again, we need to take a step back. Let's assume that I don't have an environment yet, right? I don't have an environment set aside for my portals. So where do you make an environment? You have to do that in the Power Platform administration. And you can get to that through the Admin Center under the gear icon. So I'm just going to jump over here. So that's where this will take you. So now I'm in the Power Platform Admin Center, and I see all my environments, right? That I've created, right? And you can create a new environment. So let's assume we're going to create a new environment for our portal. Now, what do we need to know? We need to know what the name is. But we also need to choose, is this a production environment or a trial environment? And a trial environment will automatically be decommissioned within 30 days. Okay, so that's good if you want to just play with something and then the resources get recouped, because you know the space used, the data used in these environments is against your tenant space. So if you want this to just be a sandbox, we can create a trial environment. If this is going to be a longer standing environment, create a production environment. Right now, what's important here for creating PowerApps Portals, though, is the common data service database. And it is required. So if we create an environment that does not have this database, we will not be able to create a portal within it. So we're going to go ahead and say yes. We're going to create a database for this environment, and we're going to click next. Now, when you add that database, there's a language, there's a currency, but the most important thing that I want you to take away from this is this enable Dynamics 365 apps. And the reason is because the templates for the portal that you can create in this environment are dependent on if this is a no or if this is a yes. If it's a no, then you get a blank template, and that is the only template that you have access to. And if it is a yes, then you are going to get model-driven app templates. There are 4 of them currently: a customer, a partner, an employee, and a community. Okay. So again, enabling Dynamics 365 apps enables you to get additional templates. And I'm going to actually show you that real quickly. So if I look here, I'm in the empty environment, which is really the one that does not have the Dynamics 365 add-ins. I've got this portal from blank. So there's my portal app template, and it is the only portal app template that I have. If I go over to this customer self-service database environment, this does have the Dynamics 365 model-driven app templates shown, and you can see the 4 here. There are community, customer, partner, and employee self-service portals. And those are directly connected to your Dynamics 365 environment. Also, you will see that I've created, pre-populated some portals already. So when you create those portals, you'll see that, again, Dynamics 365, that branding, even though it's been moved over to the Power Platform, right now, we're still seeing a lot of that branding. And you can see Dynamics 365 portals have been deployed, Dynamics 365 portal solutions, excuse me, have been deployed to this environment when I created that initial portal. Right, so you can see that a lot of solutions and data entities are created within this environment as a result of the creation of the portals, and a lot of that still has the Dynamics 365 branding. So now let me go back to create, because that's what we were really talking about, right? We want to create a portal, and I'm going to choose the portal from blank. And it's pretty simple to create a portal. We give it a name, and then we give it an address. And that is the most important thing, because you'll see that the URL for all portals is .powerappsportals.com. What you're doing is just putting that prefix in. So I want to create my test portal, and oh wait, that domain name is already taken. I'm sure somebody out there in the world has already created a test dot. So I actually need to create something that is a little more unique, right? And it comes back and says, hey, that's available. And normally the create button would now be enabled. But what you're seeing is one of the limitations. And that is that in each environment, you can only have one portal of each type. So you'll see that in this environment, which I've already created, I have this Microexcel support portal, and this is a customer self-service portal. And I have a Microexcel webinar portal that is a portal from blank. So since I already have a portal from blank, I cannot create another portal from blank here, right? So you can have multiple portals of different types. You can have a customer self-service portal, and you can have a blank portal or a custom portal, but you cannot have two custom portals, and you cannot have two customer self-service portals. If you need to do that, you will have to create another environment. Currently, there's also a limitation on the number of portals per tenant, and that limitation is 5. So again, those limitations, 1 portal of each type per environment, and 5 portals total per tenant. Again, this may change in the future, but those limitations keep in mind when you're creating your portal environments. And just to summarize, we went through creating a new environment with the CDS database. We also walked through how to create a portal and the different templates that are available based on if you have the Dynamics 365 add-ins enabled in that database. Blank versus the model-driven app templates. And we also saw how the associated Dynamics 365 solutions and entities are created on the back end, and the branding has not been changed yet. So you will continue to see D365 as terminology through PowerApps Portals. Okay, so now we have a portal. Actually, I have a few canned portals that I created, but I haven't edited them yet. They're just the out-of-the-box templates. So how do we actually start working with these portals? Okay, so we'll go back to our site here, and I'll go to this portal here. So I've got this ME demo portal, right? And if I just, in the apps list, click on ME demo, it's going to open up, and you're going to see it's medemo.powerappsportals.com, just like I said that URL is. And this is publicly accessible, anonymous. In fact, right now, you can open up a browser, you can go to that site, and you'll see exactly what I see here. All right, so what if I want to edit that, right? So I viewed it, we now want to make some changes to it. Well, you can go to the context menu, or you can select it and go to the toolbar up there, but there's the edit. So let me edit. And what you're going to see here when it loads, and it does take a little bit of time to load, it's really a no-code visual design editor, right? And it's similar if you've got experience editing pages within SharePoint, right? It's very similar. It's in fact extremely similar to something we mentioned earlier, which was the SharePoint public websites, right? That used to be available in SharePoint Online. So with that said, it's extremely simple, right? Extremely simple, again, targeted at those power users, not necessarily developers. And you simply click into any of these components here, and you'll be presented with basic format information. So I clicked into this getting started, and now I can choose this font size and some formatting. I can choose the color and alignment. I can also just start typing, right? And there I go, and the change is made, right? Now, something to note, that change is already live, right? It is saving as we go. You can actually see it. Maybe you saw it down there, but it said save. There is no save button. It's going to save as we go. Now, there is a lot of caching that Microsoft uses to maintain performance of PowerApps portals. So that text isn't live on the site yet, but if I want to see the most up-to-date site, I can click this browse website on the top right. And that browse website actually clears the cache and then opens a window to the site. So that cache is now cleared, and it's going to open it up, and we're going to see my typing. All right. So now back to, back to the design editor here. So in addition to just making changes right on the page, we've got things in the toolbar on the left. So the first thing is pages. And this is where, hey, you know what? This isn't just the only page in here. The template comes with some demo product pages. And let me go ahead and click on one of those so you can see that. It does take a little bit of time to load. I feel like the experience within the PowerApps portals is a little slow, but who knows? And actually look at that. Even worse, especially on a live demo, it timed out. But maybe that's something that they'll be able to resolve as well. So once this loads, I apologize for this, but it wouldn't be a live demo without something going wrong, right? So while that loads, this pages allows you to create new pages, and all the pages in your PowerApps platform are hierarchical. So I'm actually going to go back and load this fresh, hoping that that resolves some of the issues. Oh, almost. While that is loading, those pages are hierarchical, right? And you, in that pages toolbar, you are able to choose where in the hierarchy those pages live. You know, what is a parent page? What is a child page? And you're enabled to move the pages up and down, add new pages somewhere in that hierarchy. And I'll briefly show you this when it comes up here so you can understand visually what I'm talking about. All right. So here's that pages. And then in the context menu of each, right, I can add child pages. I can move them up and down. And you can do that throughout that hierarchy, right? Your standard delete, hide in the default menu, because the default menu does use the hierarchy. You can see home services about us is home services about us. And then everything under services, which I opened up here, product A and product B, are a submenu of services, right? So default navigation uses this hierarchy. Okay. Now, next is components, right? So what are components? Well, they're how you edit the actual page with content. So if I go onto the page here and I say, you know what, I want to go into this section, and again, this is a little slow, but hey, I need a 2-column section here. So it's going to add a 2-column section. You can see I've got this 2-column section that it's just created. And then in that 2-column section, I want to go ahead and I want to put an image on the left, and we'll put some text on the right. Again, I'm simply clicking between these sections in the visual. So now I've clicked in there. We've got the text area, we've got the image area, and as I select each, the property change on the top right to allow me to go ahead and make those changes. So I'm going to close this up pretty soon because it's actually hogging my browser, and that's why it's performing pretty slowly. But you can see I've clicked on the image. Now I am able to upload an image from anywhere, load that into the site, and do some basic formatting on that image. right? So that is pages, that is components. The third thing here is the theme. So each portal uses the Bootstrap CSS, and it also uses a theme CSS. So you can actually go in here. Now this is starting to get a little beyond the realm of a power user, but you can see I've actually edited this in a demonstration walkthrough earlier, where I've added some CSS in here to impact the platform, the portal. So more than just editing the pages in that WYSIWYG editor, right? The what you see is what you get editor. You can now pull out the CSS for the theme and modify that to create a better visual experience for your site. Okay, so let's go back to one of these pages. I'll load up the home page. And then last thing I want to talk about is templates, right? So this last item here is for templates. And I'll actually, in a little while, get into what that means, right? So templates, every page is based on a page template. And page templates could be, hey, it's a full page versus it's an article page with 2 columns versus, right? So we're going to have these templates, and each page is based on a template, and I'll show you later what each template is actually based on, which is what's called a web template, and there's some actual code behind. But you can see out of the box, here's your templates, a full page versus a page with links versus a page with a title. And when you create a new page, it's all based on these templates, and you can customize those. All right. So we went over how to view your PowerApps portal. We went over how to edit the portal. We saw a little bit how unresponsive it is, but again, I hope that that's something that will either improve or is just something I'm experiencing for some reason. And we went into the ways that you can edit those pages, right? With components, with customizing the theme, and with creating page templates for your pages. One thing we mentioned, saving's automatic, right? As you're typing, as you're editing that page, it's automatically saving. However, there is that caching mechanism, right? So there is that caching mechanism. Use that browse website button to see your latest changes. And something I didn't mention, but should, there is no check-in, check-out, or publish feature, right? The only thing that you've got available is that automatic saving and then the caching. So unlike some other more advanced content editing with a check-in out and a publishing feature, that is not available currently to edit your PowerApps portals. So at this point, let me pause a second from talking while we ask the next poll question.
Sure, and here is our second poll question. What are you currently using for anonymous web responses? The options are Microsoft Forms, Google Docs, .NET website, WordPress, SurveyMonkey.
If you are using more than one, since we did not make this a select multiple, please pick the one that you're using the most.
All right, so we have captured 75% of the responses, and 67% of the respondees use Microsoft Forms, 22% uses SurveyMonkey, and 11% uses .NET website. So there are no users or no attendees, who have voted
That's
for Google
very
Docs or WordPress.
Very interesting. So now you've got another potential option in terms of this. And what I showed you with that blank portal is not necessarily conducive to the web responses. However, those templates that used the Dynamics 365 add-in, right? The customer self-service portal especially is exactly what you can use for that. All right, so now that we've talked about creating a portal and editing a portal, let's get into the administration of that portal, right? So I'm going to go back here. And here's what I want to show you, right? So initially, portals are created as a trial type, right? So all portals are created as that trial type. And just like the environment we saw before, where there's a trial type and a production type, the same thing goes with portals. So when you first create your portal, like I said, it's a trial type. It's going to disappear in 30 days if you don't convert it to a production portal. And the way you see that is by going into the context menu. We'll go to settings and we'll do administration, right? So now this is going to open up a window. This window is going to be the portal administration, portal admin center area. And we're still looking at this same ME demo portal that we were looking at and editing earlier. And you can see that it's trial type, okay? And it's even giving me a warning. I got 29 days left. There's the button to convert it. I'm not going to do it now because it actually takes quite a while, quite a few minutes, up to an hour I've seen. But that's how you would do it. Now, additionally, in the portal administration, there's many other things obviously you can do here, right? Under portal actions, you can set up audit logs. You can enable maintenance mode, which puts a, currently the site is under construction kind of page, for those that remember those old school under construction pages. You can change the base URL and do disable errors and do a lot of other things. But there are two other things that are here that are important if you're somebody in that Microsoft 365 space, in that Office 365 space, and that is setting up SharePoint integration. Setting up that SharePoint integration enables document management capabilities in the PowerApps portal using a SharePoint document library behind the scenes as the repository. Okay. Setting up Power BI integration. Setting up that Power BI integration allows you to connect to your Power BI repository and embed Power BI reports and dashboards in your PowerApps portal. So see, we started off with a very, I would say, basic external website, and now we're potentially exposing document management. We're exposing Power BI reports and dashboards. We're turning this into a very useful, externally accessible portal. Additionally, you can run the portal checker, which is like a health check. It checks for, broken links and bad settings and properties and other things, right? Misspellings. And then lastly here is setting up IP address restriction. So when your portal's first created, it's open to everybody. And hopefully some of you actually went to that URL and could see the portal that I've created before. And that's because when it's first created, there's no IP address restriction. It's open to the world. If you go into set up IP address restriction, you can create ranges that will limit the audience of your URL to only people in those IPs. Now, what I want to show you is what happens once that portal is converted to a production portal, right? Because converting it to that production portal is something that adds even more capabilities. So let me go in here. We're going to go into this Microexcel support portal, which was based on the customer self-service template. And we're going to open this up. And I will briefly, since we are actually a little bit behind schedule, show you that this is moved to production, right? This is a production portal now. And what does that let you do? That lets you set up custom domains. So no longer is it, you know, sethstest.powerappsportals.com. Now it can be microexcelsupport.com, right? As long as you set up the proper CNAME and get the artifacts from the appropriate organizations. Here's where I can set up that domain and then also set up SSL certificates to make it an HTTPS and you know, more secure, right? So very important that once you put that into production, you get these capabilities of what is really a full-fledged production type of website. And one last thing that was additional here when you put this into production is a development status tag. This is to assist in adding this to your current DevOps process. Hopefully you've got, you know, something now when this is a production portal that you can use to denote where in that DevOps process this is. Not just production, but where in that production lifecycle. All right, so we talked about that it's in trial type initially, and you get certain capabilities, including SharePoint integration and Power BI integration, very useful. And then once you convert to production type, it expands those capabilities, getting a development status, as well as custom domains and SSL certificates. All right, so we're peeling back the layers and we're almost to the last layer here, right? So advanced website administration. Well, what is that? Well, remember, this was all based on Dynamics 365 portals, right? So based on Dynamics 365 portals, when you created your first portal, it will create another model-driven app here called Dynamics 365 Portals, right? If you did not include the D365 add-in when you created your database, it will be called something different. It will be called Portal Management App, right? So you'll either see Portal Management App or you'll see Dynamics 365 Portals. When you click on that, you're taken to an area that looks awfully a lot like Dynamics 365 Portals because that's where it still is, right? So Microsoft has not moved this over to the Power Platform, but you will have access to get to this area to further manage your website. And why I say it's pulling back the layers of the onion is because now we're starting to get into even more technical administration things, redirects, more site settings and website bindings, right? We're going to see content here. Now this is where it gets interesting, right? Remember I said every page that gets created, right, is based on a page template. So we have page templates here for the website. We have the web pages based on the template. And by the way, you will see in Dynamics 365, this actually is a superset or a consolidation of all pages through all those portals, right? So you can see I've got the custom portal and the customer self-service portal both sets of pages in one. You could filter that here if you wanted to, but you can also see that parent page is that page template, and then the page template is based on a web template, which is underneath here, right? So these web templates are the lowest layer, and that you can see includes actual development. So if you're a developer and you're looking at this and you're wondering, well, where do I get involved? Here's where you can really get involved, and really get involved to create dynamic content using what is a programming language called Liquid, right? So each of these active web templates is a snippet of code using Liquid language for dynamic content. And then again, those web templates roll up to the page templates, which are used for each page. One last thing I want to actually touch on here is the security. So under security, I click on contacts, and when you do have one of those identity models, it will show up, those users will show up as contacts here. So you can see this Seth Bates at microexcel.com is actually because I logged into my customer self-service portal with my Microexcel account as a user. It created that contact, and this is very similar to your normal Dynamics 365 contacts, right? So here's where your users are, your user management. They're under contacts. It's going to have information about that contact from when they signed up, but more than that, it's giving you a timeline of what they've done in your portal, right? In all your portals. So I can see this user did some posts. He submitted a case, right? So that customer self-service portal is really a ticketing system, right? That can submit cases back to Dynamics 365, right? So we're really showing the full capabilities at this point of not just the portal, but how it ties back into your common data service, your Dynamics 365, and how all of that is intertwined. So you can see here, I did submit a support case through that customer self-service portal, and I can get to that information as a user in the as a person who's running the portal. I can get to that information here. Okay, so we showed the Dynamics 365 portals or portal management app, right? Depending on which way you created your database, and the website settings, content, including pages, page templates, and web templates. The security is under really the user management, and that's the contacts. And then again, we talked about that page entity hierarchy, including the Liquid programming language for dynamic content under the web templates. So going a little quickly now, but most importantly, licensing, right? So this was the last topic. So we're almost there. And of course, there's a licensing discussion to be had, right? So if you look on the right-hand side first, you'll see that and we're going to start actually at the bottom. So let's start at the bottom, internal users. In other words, if I created this for the Microexcel tenant, other Microexcel users, well, they can use my portals all they want based on their PowerApps per app or per user licenses or Dynamics 365 licenses. No additional licenses needed on top of that. Okay, taking one more step up. For my portals that I just created, I've got external users who are anonymous. In fact, some of you probably used this already and went to that portal that I showed you, that sample portal. Well, it's not free. It is $100 per 100,000 page views for anonymous external users. Okay, that's the only option, $100 per 100,000 page views. What about authenticated external users, right? So we said they could authenticate through Azure AD, they could authenticate through a Microexcel account or Google or LinkedIn, right? And this is important for things like that customer self-service portal template where I want people to log in. I need to know who they are. I need that contact information, and I need to be able to tie cases back to a person, right? That model is per login. And you can see it starts off as $2 per login, goes to $1 per login, and then even cheaper as you buy in bulk. Okay. Now to the left, what is a login? It's not each time the person logs in. It is unlimited access for 24 hours. So if I log in now, and then 5 minutes later I've closed the browser and I log in again, that's a single login, right? A single login, unlimited access for 24 hours. But it is only valid for a single portal. So if I have two portals out there in my tenant that both require logins, and Amit logs into one, and then he opens the other one and logs into the other one, that is two logins, one for each, right? So it is unlimited access for 24 hours per portal. Now, how do you purchase these? They are add-ons to the PowerApps P1 or P2 licenses. Okay, and please note, because this question does come up sometimes, right? Is there carryover? If I buy 100 logins for my customer portal and there's only 80 logins this month, do I get 120 logins next month? And the answer, unfortunately, right now is no. There is no carryover month to month from Microsoft. You're getting a maximum number of logins per month, and any logins below that are lost. All right. That concludes the presentation portion of the webinar, and we'll open it up for questions and answers now.
Thank you, Seth. We have few questions already, so let's take those first. And okay, so first one is what licenses are required to create portals? I think you answered part of this already.
Well, I did, but not quite, right? These licenses that I've talked about earlier, let me see if I can get this to go up, right, are for actual logins and views. The licensing to create a portal is that PowerApps P1 or P2 license. So you do need the normal PowerApps licensing to create a portal, but there's no additional licensing on top of that. Yeah. So those of you that have already been using PowerApps and are licensed for PowerApps should have the ability without additional licensing of using PowerApps Portals.
Okay. The second one is any ability for custom or vanity domain names.
Yes, so absolutely. And I briefly touched on that here, right? And that requires that you take your portal and convert it to a production type. All right, once you convert it to a production type, you can set up those custom domains, right? It enables you, but not on a trial portal, only a production portal, and you can set up those custom domain names, those vanity domains. Good question.
All right, the third one that we have is, how is portal better than any other available options highlighted in the poll?
That's the $1 million question, huh? Here's what I would say. It's better because if you already have PowerApps, it's free. It's included with your licensing. That's one thing. The other way it's better is because it does have these integrations, right? Those other options don't include SharePoint integration, don't include Power BI integration. If you're on Microsoft 365, you likely have those things already. Your team likely is working on Power BI or will be shortly. And the ability to integrate those directly into your portal is a huge plus. So that's what I feel is the cost in terms of ability to get up and running quickly, along with the integration with other Microsoft 365 capabilities such as SharePoint and Power BI, are why it does set itself apart.
Okay, let me check if there are any more questions. I don't see any at this point in time that we have not answered.
Okay.
Yeah, so with that, as we conclude this session, we would like to thank all of you for your time
Let
and
me
attention.
let me just add one thing too that it probably should have been the first answer when setting this apart, and then that is integrating with your CDS database, integrating with your common data service database, right? So integrating with your Dynamics 365 data for those more advanced portal templates, the partner self-service, the customer self-service, the employee self-service for HR capabilities. Imagine being able to leverage all of that data you've got within a CDS or Dynamics 365 already, and doing that in an area that can integrate that Power BI and SharePoint. So sorry to bring it back and cut you off there, but I wanted to make sure that I emphasize that as well, that it's not just integration with Power BI and SharePoint, but it's integration with your common data service and Dynamics 365 environment, which you may already have.
Sure, Seth. Yeah, and I think it'll also be a good idea to leave your contact details with all the attendees just in case they come across questions
Absolutely.
outside of
So
here.
there's my contact information. Feel free, if you do think of something, feel free to reach out. And also for those evaluating Power Apps, feel free to reach out if you've got any questions, or just let me know how it's going.
Okay, so I think with that, let's finally conclude the webinar, and thank everybody for their time and attention.
Yes.
All of you will receive a survey link once the webinar is closed. Please take a minute out of your schedule to complete the same, as such feedbacks help us improve our webinar quality. The link to recording of this webinar will also be shared with all the attendees. And with that, we wish everybody a great day ahead. Thank you.